Welcome to part 2 of New Champions Orientation. I'm Pastor Corey, and in this session, we will be discussing our first core value, honoring God through worship. I'm so excited that you've decided to continue on this journey with me as we endeavor to make Jesus famous. Now, let's talk about what it means to honor God through worship. We understand that the basic principle of worship is stewardship. Stewardship is defined as the job of supervising or taking care of something, such as an organization or property. Let's look at a few scriptures for reference. Genesis 1:26 reads, "Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that may move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Romans 11:35 says, "Who has ever given to God that God should repay them? For from him and through him and for him all things are. To him be the glory forever. Amen." Flip over to Romans 12:1 and you'll find where Paul writes, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Listen, before we move on, why don't we dig a little bit deeper into the facets of worship? Let's start with Psalms 24:1, where King David wrote, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." How about 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 26, that tells us that the earth and everything in it belongs to God also? And that includes us, which means all that we think we own, we don't. All that we think we are, we're not. Your car, your house, your clothes, your money, your wife, your husband, your children, pets, and whatever else you think of, it's all on loan by God. It all belongs to God. So let's start with talking about your time. Did you know that God is the creator of time? That's why he has no beginning. He is beyond time. He created you in time. That's why you have a birth date. And at the end of your life, you will all have a date of death. This may surprise you, but your very life and the time that you spend living it is on loan by God. Now, it's been said that the only thing in existence that we will never be able to get back or restore is time. So make the best of it by using it well. Here's a question. How much of your time do you spend living out Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 through 27? Here, let's read it again. "Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Are you spending your time in the authority of God? Are you spending your time ruling like God intended you to? If not, then let's get plugged in here at C4 so that you can start operating in the way that God created you, in his likeness. Let's talk about your talent. What are your gifts and how will you use your gifts to glorify God in the church? Paul writes a lot about gifts and talents, and we have a huddle designed to help you identify what spiritual gifts you have if you don't know them already and how they can be used to glorify God and edify his church. But for now, let's look at the following verse for a quick overview of gifts. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 4 tells us that there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one, there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, To another, a message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, gifts of healing by that one Spirit. To another, miraculous powers. To another, prophecy. To another, distinguishing between spirits. To another, speaking in different kinds of tongues. And to still another, the interpretation of tongues. All these are the work of one and the same Spirit, and he distributes them to each one just as he determines. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. Now, the next facet of worship I'd like to talk about relates to your generosity. This is often the most challenging facet of worship for some, but it is also one of the most defining. It is without a doubt that people give to what and who they love most. So let's talk about your treasures. Jesus tells us in Matthew 6:19, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." It's clear, ladies and gentlemen, that we give to what we love. For example, if you spend more money on alcohol, clothes, or entertainment than you give to the work of God, you probably love those things more than God. In fact, I'm certain of it. At Champions, we believe in tithing and offering. Tithing is 10% of one's income, and giving is anything above and beyond that. Tithing is a way of saying thank you to God. But it also says to God, you can trust me with more. That's what makes this facet of worship so personal. Your money is a matter of the heart. It expresses how you feel about God and his providence. Now, the final facet of worship that we'll discuss today is corporate worship. At C4, Sunday morning worship should be a celebration. Public worship outwardly expresses our gratitude for what God has both publicly and privately done in our lives. No one and nothing should excite us more than God. If we can shout and yell and throw our hands up in the air unashamed at a sporting event or a concert, we should be able to do the same or even more so in the presence of God and his people. I want to share with you a few scriptures that I hope will encourage you to actively get involved in corporate worship at the Gathering of Champions. We'll start with Psalms 104, which says, "Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name." Isaiah 35:10 says, "And those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away." Psalm 16:11 says, "You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand." Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes part 2 of New Champions Orientation. As we come to a close, I hope you have a better understanding of our first core value, honoring God through worship. I am so glad that you've committed to completing this journey with us. In our next session, we'll talk about what it means to be humble and humble ourselves through prayer, which is the second of the 3 H's. I'm Pastor Corey, and we'll see you at the next session.